Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got another great show, as always, with my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Welcome to the show.
And welcome to the Milky Way. I am your humble co-host, Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I greet you, as always, me and Robert do, with the blessings from the great Creator. And we hope that you all are doing as well as possible under these most crazy times. And so maybe tonight is just a little, you can just let your mind drift and listen to something else other than what else is going on in the world. Maybe we can give you 2 hours of something else to distract your mind for a while. So we always say thank you and blessings. And tonight's show, we're going to have our stories is going to be Blue Jay and Lizard and the Grizzly Bears. So stay tuned.
Nice. Yes, Scotty Boy's in the house. Yes, I'm killing the flies. I may not have mosquitoes here, but I have flies. Hope you watched the garden video the other day, and if you haven't, go check that out. It's a little bit of my garden. And my shirt is blue. And if you want one of these shirts, Nina has them on her channel. And you can get Milky Way Soul Tribe shirts in her merch store. If you want to check that out, there's Milky Way Soul Tribe shirts. There's one that it's a tribute to Brian, Milky Way Brian. And then there's another one. There's a couple different varieties, and she's got mugs with the Milky Way on it. So if you want to check that out, get yourself a mug or a t-shirt, support the show or whatever, you go right ahead and get yourself some, because I got one for me. They'll make great Christmas gifts, and you know, I'd never get close to so many chests. You know, one way or the other.
Live among the boobs. We should have our picture together for our, but anyway, just as a.
Yeah, we should have one for that too. I got a good picture for that. Cool. Yeah, that's an idea. Never thought of that one. Perfect.
I mean, just because we've been doing this for how many shows is this tonight?
136 shows.
136. Now, that's got to be a record for something. How many for just a couple of, he's a northern redneck and I'm a southern redneck. And for us two to get together and do 136 shows over these last 2 years at least, right?
Yeah, 2, 3. Well, going on 3 years now, maybe more.
Yeah, 3 years, because we got 52 weeks a year, and that's 100, and we're already at 136, so we're working on 4 years.
Yes, we are. We only missed a few weeks, just here and there, a few weeks. Wow, yeah, amazing.
So I thank you, my brother. We've had a good run. We've talked about all kinds of things, and I don't have any intentions of quitting anytime soon, unlike some other people who have resigned. Yeah. I'm sorry, I had to throw that in there. But no, we intend to be around for as long as possible. So thank you all for forever showing up. Thank you.
Oh, there you go. Scotty Boy, he's a way to go, 136 shows, and you guys still want to talk to each other? Huh? Hey,
we still get along.
Right. It's been good, too, because we kind of, after all these shows, we kind of know each other well, and who does what, and when, and how it all works, and seems to get along good that way. And
Robert's used to me interrupting him.
Yeah, it is what it is. And, I sometimes I like the interruption because it makes you start thinking. And, if I was doing this all myself, there's no commentary. Then it's my opinion, my reading. That's it. And who wants that? I want somebody, hey, what's going on there? Kind of thing. And
And the reason I have to interrupt you is because I'll forget it.
Well, yeah,
Oh God, I gotta stop him because I want to get. Oh crap! There we go. I forgot already.
well, yeah, exactly. Hey, there's Max Vision from a remote view. I didn't make Saturday's show. I got in there and I was so tired I had to go to work. But anyway, it is what it is. It gets late then after my show. I'm kind of all pumped up, but I got to finish up and get ready for work the next day. And you know, anyway, it's been some
And
trying
I
time.
was looking for the show the other night and couldn't seem to find it. So
I put it on my. I usually at the end or so of the show, I put it in a link in the description. I tell everybody to go over to Max's show and check it out. Do some mind work. It's like a muscle, and if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So the best way to do it is to keep doing it. Right? Anyway.
yep.
Tonight we're going to be talking about a great adventure. Or was it a great disaster? Or was it an extinction event, a genocide? And I think it was more of the latter. I got this cool book. It's General John Sullivan's Indian Expedition of 1779. This was quite the book to get.
Is that leather or what's it bound by?
It's like a cloth cover. It's old.
It looks embossed. In other words, is the cover raised?
Yeah. Yes. It's embossed there. Yeah. This one was printed in 1887. So it is a very fragile book.
So about 100 years later?
Yeah, a little over 100 years, 150 years old or so.
No, I mean from the event.
Oh, yeah, 1779. Yeah, about 100 years after the event.
Okay.
Yes. So what it is, and I thought it was a book about his adventures of doing this, but it turned out that it was journals of all the officers, different journals that they kept. And here's just a short one. And it talks, so each one of the officers back in the day, not like they do now. Let's see. Nowadays people keep records. They you got to fill out a time card. You report to your officers. Everything is documented and triple documented, right? Back then they didn't have all that. You're out in the wilderness. There's no computer. There's no nothing. So these men would carry around little books and keep journals. And each one of these officers kept a journal or a diary, you could call it, of their adventure or what went on. And some of these things are real simple. And I've been reading some of these. Some of them are kind of boring, and other ones are really exciting.
Come on, read us a boring one.
Yeah, here's a real short one. This is Major John Burroughs. And let's see here. Camp 3 miles from Chemington, Wednesday, 29th September. March from Newtown at half after 9 o'clock. The boats set off at the same time, but halt about an hour at Chemington. Arrive at this place at 3 o'clock this afternoon, weary and worn, or very worn. Tioga, Thursday, 30th September, 1779. Arrived here at 4 o'clock p.m. When as soon as our front had almost advanced to the fort, the army was saluted by 13 cannons, which was returned by our artillery. As soon as the firing ceased in the fort, Colonel Shear had dinner prepared for the generals and field officers, and the officers of the different regiments that were left with the garrisons had prepared also dinner for the officers of their respective regiments. And the whole dined in the fort and spent most of the part of the afternoon and evening very agreeably. Tioga. Tioga was a fort, Fort Tioga. Tioga, Friday, October 1st. This day is only for a day of rest, which we make the most of as such. And that's it. Saturday, Tioga, October 2nd, 1779. We spent this day in wishing each other joy for our safe return and covered the evening. You gotta remember, these guys are writing in this old English. So celebrated as usual, wives and sweethearts, which we do in plenty of grog drink. You know,
So they're
heretofore,
drinking to their sweethearts.
that's right. Heretofore
Toast.
have been toasting, have been obliged to keep in plenty of cold water. Tioga, Sunday, October 3rd. Yesterday's orders for demolishing the fort is put in operation. A party of 500 fatigued men set at it. At 8 o'clock this morning, the garrison all joined their respective regiments. 6 pounds of flour issued to each man this day is their allowance to Wyoming. The sick and the lame and the men without shoes to go in boats. Make all preparations to march in the morning. And it kind of goes like that. It's kind of perspective. He's talking about they're going to a Wyoming, which is Pennsylvania. And the sick and the lame, that means there's men sick, men that, got bad legs or can't walk, men without shoes. So the soldiers don't even have shoes. I mean, that's just almost unthinkable. In my eyes, I mean, you wouldn't go to war without shoes, would you?
Well, back in the in the 20s, when folks went up into Appalachian, all them barefoot children running around, they were barefoot because they couldn't afford shoes.
That's true. And back in these days, apparently they couldn't either. And it just goes on. There's a bunch of days in here. This is another October Monday. Me shopping, October 4th, 1779. March at 8 o'clock this morning. Ford and Tioga and Susquehanna, and pass a very bad defile on the side of a mountain. Arrive here at half after 6 o'clock. So 6:15. But I love how they put these things. I mean, did they really talk like that? Apparently did. Arrive here at half after 6 o'clock. Or was that 6:30?
6:30.
6:30. Okay. And it just goes on and on. Some of them are really good, and they're all different dates. And it talks a little bit about here's a journal of Lieutenant Colonel Henry Dearborn. Henry Dearborn, Lieutenant Colonel commanding the 3rd New Hampshire Regiment. The following sketch is by General John S. Clark, Audubon, New York. Colonel Dearborn was born in Hampton, New Jersey in March 1751. He was the captain at Bunker Hill and accompanied Arnold in the march through the woods against Quebec, in which expedition he was captured. He was exchanged in 1777 and soon after was appointed major of Samuel's regiment at Saratoga. He commanded the separate battalion under General Gates and was afterward at Marmouth, where he distinguished himself and a regiment by a gallant charge. In 1779, Colonel Samuel was acting as adjutant general of the army, leading Lieutenant Colonel Dearborn in command of the regiment during Sullivan's campaign. He was at the siege of Yorktown in 1781 and afterward on garrison duty at Saratoga and West Point until 1784. He served 2 terms in Congress was for 8 years Secretary of War under Jefferson, and in the War of 1812 was Senior Major General of the Army. In 1822, he was minister to Portugal, and from whence He returned after 2 years of service and died in Roxbury, Massachusetts, June 6, 1829. After his death, his son, Henry Alexander Samuel Dearborn, collected and arranged the valuable papers of his father, transcribed the journals, which extended through the entire period of the Revolution, and added important historical sketches to the whole, making 45 large volumes, handsomely bound in Morocco, an exterior approximating in elegance to the insatiable value of the material within. On the death of his son, all of these expecting 7 volumes were taken apart and the contents made up of valuable autograph letters of the Revolutionary period, scattered to the 4 winds by a sale of public auction. The 7 volumes containing no autographs were reserved at the sale and remain intact. In one of these is a journal kept during Sullivan's campaign as arranged by his son, but this copy differs from the original in many particulars and includes much matter evidently obtained from other sources, and with many other valuable original documents are now in the possession of Charles P. Greenough, Esquire of Boston, Massachusetts, who intends to present them through his brother William Greensboro, Esquire of New York City, to the Waterloo Library and Historical Society of Waterloo, Seneca County, New York. With the consent of the appropriation of the society literal copy of the original journal has been obtained through the kindness and courtesy of Mr. Greenborough, who has taken great pains to make the copy accurate, and sincere acknowledgments are due to him and also to the Waterloo Library and Historical Society for the great favors so cheerfully bestowed. And you know, so this is quite the information. And man, I wonder if that document still exists. That's probably really cool.
And it's a shame they tore out the pages and sold them.
Yeah, volumes and volumes. You know, but it's amazing that these people, you know, I didn't even know existed and what contributed to our society that we live in today. And it goes on and on about, you know, talks about here Henry Dearborn for pages and pages and pages, which is really cool to have, you know.
Is Dearborn, Michigan named after him by happy chance?
I don't know. I do not know. It'd be a good one to look out for, you know. It just goes on with bunches of different guys. But before I go through some of those, I mean, you know, I'm sure I'll find some in here that talk about the Sullivan's expedition. And that's what got me going, because I really thought it was going to be, you know, a story about the expedition, but it wasn't. But it led me on to a new path. And that path was Sullivan's expedition. I mean, you know, so that was the whole thing. Sullivan's expedition is where it's at. And that's why what we're here. And
I know I'm going to ask this question, and I know you're fixing to answer. So, who was Sullivan?
Well, Sullivan was a general in the Navy, and let's see, I got a picture of him.
He was a Navy general?
Yeah, well, he was in the Navy, and this is his picture here. And there's more about him. Let's see here. So let's get some pictures up here. Pictures are always good. This is General Sullivan. Now, why are we talking about the English tonight? Usually we talk about, you know, Indians, but Baby Ghost is in the house. Well, thank you for coming tonight. Yes, Seneca Falls, Waterloo, Cayuga territory. Yes. Sullivan destroyed Seneca villages while the men were away on a hunt. Yes, I'm going to get to that too. This is going to turn really ugly, everybody. That's the whole thing. This turns ugly. Oh, where is my thing? Oh, here it is. I'm trying to find the pages here. Well, we all recognize this guy. This is Sullivan, Major General John Sullivan. And this Indian guy, and you remember who he was, right?
He looks familiar, but I can't remember.
He is this guy. He is Brant. A prelude to the Sullivan Indian expedition. And then in 1778, the American Revolution was at a stalemate, centered on the British control of New York City. The British had lost the Battle of Saratoga, which convinced the French to join the war on the American side. But the French yet to arrive, because remember, Napoleon was over there fighting. Meanwhile, British loyals waged guerrilla war against frontier settlements in northern New York and Pennsylvania. That's where our story begins tonight. And the allies from the Six Nations. So remember, the Six Nations realized that the Americans were invading their land, so they teamed up with the British. Remember that? So those included the Mohawk, the Onondaga, the Cayuga, Seneca, Oneida, and the Tuscarora, along with some Lenape. Mohawk leader, this was their big leader, Joseph Brant. Remember, he was skilled. He went and he was schooled, and he was a smart man. And he
go overseas to Europe.
Yeah, he went to schooling and the whole 9 yards. Yeah, and then he joined up with the British, because they were stealing their lands, and more lands they stole, the more he got pissed off. He led a force of loyalists and Iroquois, primarily Mohawk, in raids on Cobleskill and German Flats. The Seneca warrior led by Corn Planter, remember we talked about Corn Planter, and the Saracuga, whatever, I can't say that, Sayagataka, along with the loyalist Milita, attacked the settlement in the Wyoming Valley. They lost
militia.
Militia? Oh, yeah, militia. Okay, sorry.
A militia. So that means they all got, the local folks got together with their guns.
Yes, and they defeated them in the Wyoming Valley. Now, I got a whole book on the Wyoming Valley, which I have to read yet, but it is really interesting. And he got a bunch of guys together, and they went and attacked, and they only lost a couple men, but they killed 300 patriots, which are Americans, and burned all the towns and the people, killed them all off. It was crazy. Yeah, so this here battle begins in the Finger Lakes. Now, this was Seneca territory, Iroquois territory up by the Finger Lakes. As you can see, it looks like fingers. And this thing's such a good picture,
remember, they couldn't see it from the air.
Yeah, so
the folks that mapped those areas out were really good.
Yeah, so we're going to go to a map like this, where we can really see. Now, this is Wyoming here. This was the beginning of the new settlement out here. This is Tioga. Remember, we were reading from that journal, and they were here in Tioga. New York City is way over here, right? So the colonies are starting out, and this is the western wilderness out here. This is where, because they bought all this land from the Indians, and the Indians were moving west. And of course, the farther they moved west, the farther the colonists moved west. The Indians would move, the colonists would move, so forth and so on. But this was good farmland up in here. And the Indians were mad, and you can see these are mountains and stuff. So the Indians were starting to push back. They said, we've had enough of this. They teamed up with the British and and the British gave them guns, they gave them good trading, all kinds of things. And as you can see with the different towns and forts in here, here's Fort Reed, Waverly, Tioga, which is now Fort Sullivan. There's a bunch of little towns up in here, and this red route is Sullivan's journey into here. And he was trying to get rid of it. He was told, okay, so he was commissioned by none other than George Washington, because the colonists were getting killed off, and George Washington called Sullivan in. And Sullivan was a son of an Irish immigrant. As you know, the name Sullivan would be O'Sullivan or whatever. But he commissioned him and said, I have a job for you. And this job consists of going up north past Wyoming and driving the Indians out. But I don't want you just to drive them out. Now, we think of George Washington as a good guy. But he said, go up there and, wipe out every Indian you see, burn their houses, burn their villages, and destroy their crops. Don't leave a stone unturned. Go scorched earth on them. So he gave them a ton of troops, and he said,
good old George.
Yeah, go up there and take care of business. And, meet up at Fort Niagara. And he says, okay, I'll do that. So he gets another guy to help him out. And this is Clinton. And Clinton, he was another. And so it was kind of called the Clinton-Sullivan campaign. These were the two generals. Henry Clinton. General Henry Clinton famously arrives at, so here he is. He's a British Army officer, politician, commander-in-chief in North America from 1778 to 1782. So anyway, there was these two guys that teamed up. The Clinton, Sullivan. Okay, so I might as well just read this here because I'm going to get all tongue twisted otherwise. But basically,
slow down so I can hear you.
These guys were going to go up there and go scorched earth on the Indians. That was the plan. And they took a lot of troops. So here we go with this. I'm just going to read some of this out because it explains it way better than I do. The American destruction of the Six Nations. And this is how they destroyed them. Homelands came as a result of the destructive raids created out by the Indians and the American loyalists on the frontiers of New York and Pennsylvania in 1778. The raids crippled the American Continental Army by depriving it of food and manpower. So the Indians were destroying the colonists' farms, but the Indians were also farming farther north and selling all their goods to the British. Okay? So they were supplying the British with food, and they were destroying all the American crops and the American farmers that were out there farming, right? And so these settlements, they took prisoners. This forced the settlements to be abandoned for a time, if not indefinitely. But who would want to go out there if the Indians are just going to burn your house? The New York governor, George Clinton, was reporting that the frontier of New York would be pushed back to the Hudson River if these raids were allowed to continue. In response to this situation, General Washington decided to commit a better part of the Continental Army to destroy the ability of the Six Nations to wage war on the Americans. The goal of the expedition, notice they call it an expedition, like they're going out to discover something, not like, yeah, we're just going to go out and exterminate them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So watch your words. The goal of the expedition would be to completely destroy the principal villages and food supplies of the Cayuga, the Seneca Indian nations. At the very best, it was hoped that this expedition would force the Six Nations to sue for peace with the Americans. At the very least, it was hoped that the Six Nations' ability to remain on the attack would be permanently crippled. A further goal of the expedition was to take a large number of Indians prisoners to be held as hostages to help ensure the good behavior of the Indians in the future. In effect, the Americans would employ the Indians' own tactics against them. Command of the expedition was given to General John Sullivan and General James Clinton, serving as the second in command. The fact that the 4 brigades of the Continental troops, totaling around 4,469 men, were earmarked for this expedition, underlines just how important the Americans felt this enterprise was. This force of regulars was made up of troops from New York, New Jersey, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania, and was augmented by smaller groups of riflemen, militia, and Oneida Indians. In addition to this main operation, 2 smaller expeditions would destroy Seneca settlements in western Pennsylvania and Onondaga settlements in central New York. Like I said, so scorched earth policy. And he said, how many? That's a lot of men. I mean,
for back then, it was like 1 million.
Yeah, I mean, you know what it takes to feed 4,469 men every day?
Yeah, and 4,000 and that many men just walking through the countryside back then.
Holy cow, yeah. Okay, it was decided to invade the Six Nations by moving north up the Susquehanna River from Pennsylvania. The New York Brigade under Clinton was to assemble at the Chanagari on on the Mohawk River. Clinton's force would then move southwest through New York, destroying whatever Indian villages were in its path. On linking up with General Sullivan at Tioga on the Pennsylvania-New York border, the combined force would move into the heart of the Six Nations land. The expedition was supposed to be beginning in May, but it was held up due to a lack of supplies and the need to construct military roads through the wilderness. Now, with all those men, they're making roads. Which, once you start making a military road, that opens the territory up to wagons and settlers. You know what I mean? So you're hitting
because these guys were, they take that many men. They're taking artillery, and by taking artillery, that's a wagon. You got 2 wheels and so wide, and you got to get it through. And so you got horses or whoever that's pulling the cannons, but then you got to have a wagon to carry the steel balls and the ammunition and all that kind of stuff. So they had to have a road just to get their artillery through. But then, of course, with all those men and talking about feeding them, they had their chuck wagons.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. You're talking cannons, and food and livestock. I mean, you can't put it in refrigerated stuff, so they had to have livestock, and we're going to get into that. Let's see, the wilderness. Okay, so the British distrust of their allies worked in the Americans' favor as well. The British refused to believe that the Americans could mass as large a force as the Indians reported was gathered near the borders of Pennsylvania and New York. Even after the White Scouts confirmed that the Indian reports, that the British were still skeptical. American divisionary movements convinced the British that the Americans planned to attack Fort Detroit. Well, Fort Detroit's way over in Michigan, to attempt another invasion of Canada. The British never conceived that the Americans would attempt an invasion of the Six Nations homeland. By the time the British realized that the Americans' true intent, it was far too late to assist the Indians in any way. By the beginning of August, Sullivan's forces had arrived in Tioga, where they had begun the campaign by destroying the nearby mixed Indian white settlement of Chamunga. The troops arrived on August 22nd, and on August 26th, the American forces began their invasion. To counter this invasion, the British could muster only around 600 British loyalists and the Indians. Reinforcements in the form of Sir John Johnson's King's Royal Regiment of New York and additional Indians were eventually sent out by the time they left Canada. The American force had come and gone. The commander of the British force, Loyalist Colonel John Butler, advocated a strategy of guerrilla tactics, retreating in the face of a larger American force while sending out small parties to continually harass and alarm the Americans. A small party of Delaware Indians, however, who was also had villages nearby, would not agree to this strategy. They wished to stand and fight before the Americans could cause any more damage. To preserve the Indians' unity, many Six Nations war chiefs, against their better judgment, agreed. Butler had no choice but to comply with the Indians' decision. For once, the Indians were going to abandon their most effective tactics in favor of standing battle, with more disastrous results. Yeah, Indians didn't do good with standing battle. They did good with hit and run. You know?
Yep.
So the Indians chose a ridge overlooking the route of Sullivan's advance at a point, yeah, they're going to get them in the Narrows, right? Where the path narrowed to a small passage near the Indian village of Newtown. They built concealed breastworks so that they could ambush the American force at the start of the battle. There, they mixed Loyalist Indians and British forces waited for the American approach. Oh, yeah. So on the afternoon of August 29th, Sullivan's troops approached the ambush site. Unfortunately for the Indians, the Americans knew a large body of the enemy was nearby, and they were being particularly cautious and vigilant. Their advance party spotted the hidden breastworks and sent backwards the main force. Sullivan determined to occupy the Indians in front of their breastworks with a mixed force of infantry and artillery, while the New Hampshire and New York troops encircled the ridge. Colonel Butler surmised the American plans early on and once again urged the Indians to retreat, but they steadfastly refused to budge. The Indians' resolve was soon shaken as artillery rounds began to fall around them. As the American attack intensified, the Indians and the British allies were forced to retreat from their positions. Mortar shells bursting in the rear of their lines convinced many Indians that they were already encircled, and panic began to spread through their numbers. Luckily for the Indians, the American flanking column had been slowed down by crossing a creek and a swamp. Thus, the main body of Indians and their allies were able to escape just ahead of the noose that was tightening around them. With their retreat, the Battle of Newtown came to an end. While the Americans did inflict a considerable amount of casualties among the Indians' forces, their true victory was in totally overpowering the Indians and completely destroying their morale. For the remainder of the campaign, the Americans would be unhindered by their destructive advance. So now the stage is set. The Indians, they were used to fighting one way. They tried to defend. They knew the Americans were coming, and with that many men, I don't think they conceived how many men there really were. You know what I mean? And then when
to stand on the ridge and look down and see 4,400 men back in those days, they would go, holy crap.
Yeah, and then the cannons. The Indians, I think they just didn't have a thing for cannons.
And they didn't have cannons or mortars.
No, and to see or hear those things going on, it was probably just devastating.
Well, not only that, you never know when they're going to land.
Yeah.
So you can't dodge them or hide behind a rock, because the rock might be you and the rock might, become one.
That's right. Okay, so morale in the American army was high after the battle. They even agreed to subsist on half rations, supplemented by produce from the villages they encountered for the remainder of the campaign. By September 1st, Sullivan's force had reached Seneca Lake and proceeded to destroy all the principal villages in the area. Many of the troops were shocked upon entering these villages. They found not the crude bark huts or log houses of savages, but instead orderly rows of houses built of hewn timbers and framed houses with windows. Well-cultivated vegetable fields extended out from the villages along the extensive apple and peach and cherry orchards. Now listen to this. This is amazing. These Indians had houses with, hewn timbers, framed houses with windows. I mean, which is kind of unheard of. They had orchards. These were peaceful people. They were just farmers, just like anybody else.
Right.
It makes you wonder if the British would have just won, a certain section of that area or something, if the Indians wouldn't have just, started doing those things right away, but the Americans beat them down so badly that
and one of the things is, they go into these communities and they see the savages who've got houses and farms, and they go, wait a minute, so it's like they were already taking on American values, I would say, as far as farmers and the housing, and so they were already starting to integrate.
They were on their own.
On their own. Without any kind of guns, fire, or anything like that. So, and that was a lot of the issue with the Trail of Tears back in the 100 years later. Well, not quite. But, there were people living on farms and everything, and they drove them out.
Yeah, and when they say here, see, Scotty Boy's got it right. He's been saying, so, yes, sir, I've been speaking on this for years. The Indians had two-story houses way before Columbus showed up. And you know what? He might be right. We've been taught that they were all savages and they lived in these little huts and bark things and stuff like that. Maybe they didn't all live like that because, these people had hewn timber frame houses with windows, well-cultivated vegetable fields extended out from the villages, along with extensive apple, peach, and cherry orchards. Orchards don't grow overnight.
They have to be cultivated correctly too.
Yes. Now listen to this, many of these Indian villages rivaled or surpassed the towns that the soldiers had come from. That there is just plenty that I want to hear. It's like, holy cow. So really, is our history right? Were the Indian savages, or were they more advanced than we give them credit for? I don't know.
More advanced than we give them credit for.
Yeah. Okay, so Colonel Butler attempted to rally the Indians to defend Casadenda, one of the chief Seneca's towns and the base for Butler's loyalist troops. The Indians were still thoroughly intimidated from the encounter at Newtown, however, and through only removing their families to safety by September 9th, Sullivan's force had destroyed all the major settlements in the area of Canonuga Lake. They now halted while Sullivan set out on a scouting party towards Chinisio, one of the largest Seneca towns, which sat alone on the Jinsey River. This party, 26 men under Lieutenant Thomas Boyd, would become the only battle casualties that the Americans suffered. Okay. Colonel Butler had finally convinced the Indians to attempt one last stand against the invasion of their homeland. Now, I'll stop there for a second. The thing is these Indians knew, they knew that this force was coming. It was overwhelming, and they were just abandoning their houses and stuff before they got wiped out, because they knew they weren't going to, save prisoners like, oh, we captured you, and but you're still going to burn your house, and we're still going to, torch your fields and cut down your peach trees and whatever. We're going to get rid of you and all your stuff. Okay, so a force of 400 Indians and white troops lay in ambush for the Americans as they constructed a bridge across a swampy area. Boyd's party, returning from their scouting mission, inadvertently stumbled into this ambush. Thinking they had been discovered, the main body of Indians surged forward and destroyed Boyd's party. Only a few Americans escaped to return to Sullivan's army. Lieutenant Boyd and other soldiers were captured, as well as Hastings Fenswat, an Oneida scout. Thanoswat was immediately killed and mutilated by the infuriated Senecas. After being questioned by Colonel Butler Boyd and other soldiers who were on their way to Fort Niagara under the Loyalist Guard, when they were wrestled away by the Indians at Chenusio. After the Indians, frustrated over their situation, was now poured out on Boyd and his fellow captives, who were both horribly tortured and mutilated before they were both finally killed. With the failure of the ambush in the swamp, the Indians made no further attempts to halt the American advance and continue their westward retreat. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this Lieutenant Boyd. Okay? There's a bigger story to Lieutenant Boyd. He didn't just get captured and tortured. Lieutenant Boyd really got captured and tortured. And I got a picture of that too somewhere here. I think this is it. Okay. I don't know if any of you have been out this way in New York. If you're from New York, here you go. Boyd Parker, Torture Tree and Burial Mound, Western Limit, Sullivan's Expedition, 1779, Seneca Village, Little Beard's Town. Now, there's these markers all over Pennsylvania and New York, talking about his march and stuff. So if you ever get out that way to check that out, take some pictures and send them to me. Here's the torture tree. You don't earn a name like a torture tree among the locals without having a dark tale to tell. Okay, you drive south, blah, 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 to Rochester, Avion, standing in the farm fields, especially on Route 39. In the right light, the leaves shimmer white in the sun, like ripples on the river. Like an ancient white oaks, the leaves that ballooned out of their buds just weeks ago are current chapters of the story that began in the tree well over 100, 200, or even 300, some cases even 300 years ago. One of the thousands of white oaks in the Genesee River Valley, 3 individuals tell the biggest story. So the tree still actually exists. I guess that's all I got on that tree. Sorry. But what happened was, this is the tree. I suppose it was a lot smaller back then. But what they did is they tortured these men by burning them with hot burning coals. Now, if you don't want to hear this goriness, please cover your ears. But anyway, they tortured these men. They burnt them with hot pokers. They cut off their fingers and toes. They sliced skin off them. They poked their eyes out. And then, nonetheless, they cut open their stomachs. This is where the torture tree comes in. They cut open their stomachs, took out their entrails while they were still alive, and whipped them, and beat them to march around the tree until they didn't have any more entrails left. And then, as they got tighter and tighter, they died. And then they were beheaded and chopped up in little pieces. Can you imagine a horrible ending like that? Oh my gosh. I mean, I was like, wow, there's torture and there's torture. Can you imagine that? But as we go, we can see some of these other things here.
Makes you wonder where they learned it or how they learned it. I mean, somewhere along the line, somebody said, we're not going to just kill this person. We're going to rip him to shreds, and now, let's cut him open and make him run around a tree. Ooh, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes you wonder how cruel. But the Americans did the same things. There's plaques all over the place out there, I guess. Near this site from August 5th to the 8th, 1779, camped the army of Major General John Sullivan on the expedition against the Six Nations of Indians. See, like I said, it was an expedition. It wasn't a war or a genocide. It was just an expedition. And they were chasing these Indians, and as they went, they just burned their houses and villages and their crops, their everything. They just literally got rid of everything.
So it was a clean sweep and a genocide, technically.
It was. The goal was to destroy all the towns, all the houses, all their food supplies. According to what I found out, that most of these Indians would have had a 3-year supply of food. So they had 3 years worth of corn. And they were talking about, in one of the books I read, it was talking about how when the soldiers came to the village, they were growing corn that had ears that were 22 inches long. That's as big as the corn they grow nowadays, if not bigger.
Bigger.
Yeah.
22 inches long is like this long. Yeah, that's big.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Remember, we talked about corn, right? And the Indians grew corn, but basically they were growing little nubbins, right? Well, where did they get 22-inch corn from? You know what I'm saying? That was really modified corn. We still don't have 22-inch corn. You know what I'm saying?
But see, that was original corn.
Yeah, but still,
that wasn't modified by maybe the aliens, but it was basically just your everyday corn.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. But we think the Indians were just primitive growers. I mean, if they had 22-inch cobs of corn back then, wow, that's all I'm saying. They were way more advanced than we give them credit for.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, here's different signs. If you go through the portage route of General James Clinton's army, Cheganagari to Oswego Lake, 2,000 men, 300 wagons, 200 battlocks and supplies moved overland. And that's not nice country. That's rough country. Like I said, they're building roads as they go. Here's another one. General John Sullivan's army camped just west, August 5th to the 7th, en route to attack the New York Iroquois, a major campaign destroying 40 villages and ending the Indian Tory frontier menace. According to what I was reading, they were saying that when he attacked, one village had 40 longhouses in it. One village, 40 longhouses. You know what that tells me? That's 40 up to 100 people would live in a longhouse.
Yep.
So that's 40 times 100. That's a lot of people in one village. 4,000. Yeah. We think of the Indians and think, oh, there's like 100 people in the village. But that's
430 or 40.
Yeah. No, 4,000 of them. These Indians on the west or the east coast were some of the most advanced Indians I think there was. And we went in and literally destroyed their economy, destroyed who they were, all their advancements, everything. I mean, we don't have 2-foot long corn now. 22 inches. Lucky's right. 22 inches is almost 2 feet. The corn in stores isn't even a foot. Yeah. So what happened? Did we destroy that line of that? Line of corn. Because of that.
Yeah. Because there was no because they would use some of their seeds, some of the corn obviously as seed for the next year. So if they destroyed all the corn, even some of the stored corn, then they destroyed that genetic line of 22-inch long ears of corn.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Talk about a genocide. I mean, not only from a, they didn't kill all the people, but, the genocide was what they destroyed in the crops. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So what happened? And even Sullivan, here's Sullivan.
Thank you, George Washington.
Yes, exactly. And Sullivan gets a stamp. Look at that. In 1929, he got a stamp of to honor him. And I'm thinking, honor you? You went in there and did genocide. Like, you went in and clean slated everybody. How
they were worse than pirates.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, they were worse than pirates. Pirates might kill and enslave, but they didn't burn everything down. They saw the value of having, stuff. But yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And that was regular army.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he went up in there. Of course, he went around the rivers and through the mountains and literally this whole area and just destroyed everything and drove all these people out of that area so that the settlers could come in and move in. Now they got roads, they got rid of all the Indians, and he didn't kill many Indians. As much as I read on this whole thing, he did not kill a lot of Indians in the battles. Where he killed all the Indians was after he destroyed their homes, all their furnishings, all their, because they basically took what they could carry and left. And when he did that, it was just before winter. Remember, all these things happened in August, September, and October. And that was their food stores. And he got rid of all their food stores, their homes. Now you're left with nothing, and winter's here. And so most of the Indians starved and died. Regardless of how powerful you are, you can't live through the winter without clothing and food, especially in New York. It's cold there.
And there was many reports of different times where they were so hungry they would eat tree bark.
Yeah, but I mean, the Indians knew what to eat, but still, you got thousands and thousands of Indians. He didn't kill them in the short term. He destroyed their stuff, and they killed themselves off by starving to death from famine and freezing. And because now, what are you going to do? Go into the woods and chop down some trees and live in a bark hut when you had a house with windows and all that other good stuff. You know what I mean? Fireplaces and windows and stores of food and peach trees and cherry trees, and you had a good life going. And he comes in and literally cuts down, burns your house, all your stores of food, and you got nothing. I mean, even today, if your house burns down and you can't go to the store and buy anything, what do? You're gonna die. It's just
I've had a house burned down, and we lost everything.
Yeah,
everything. And you don't know what it's like until you literally lose everything. And pictures, stuff. I had a $300 guitar. I had, just all of it gone. And you wake up in the morning, expecting to put on a certain thing familiar, and it ain't there. And I can absolutely understand how they felt. Some of them were probably sitting off in the woods somewhere because there weren't any lights of the city or anything. So some of these families were probably sitting off in the distance watching their homes go up in smoke. I know what that feels like, and it's horrible to just watch everything you worked for just.
Yeah, just like that, gone. I know I had a fire in my garage and burnt my garage down. I lost all my tools, everything, a tractor. I lost all kinds of stuff. It was devastating. I'm just glad it wasn't personal items, like you said, photo albums and things like that. That stuff is a lot harder to replace. I can go buy some more tools, but still it was hard because, You don't have it. You know, oh, I got a chops. No, I don't, not anymore. I got a generate. Oh, no, I don't anymore, you know. And then you spend years trying to get all that stuff back because it would cost you thousands to go out and just buy it again. But so you get a little here and a little there, and it's rough.
And one of the hardest things is that, you know, you're all comfortable in your house and everything. You've got all these mementos and family pictures, and you just can't replace any of that.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, and when it goes up in smoke and you go, well, I used to have no, I don't. But, you know, for the native folk to just see these white men wiping out your stuff, you know, can you imagine how infuriated you must be?
Well, that's why the Indians were torturing, because any white man that came along, it's like, hey, he's a white man. He's a colonist. You know, he burnt my house down. If not, it was one of his relatives. He burnt my house down, got rid of all my food, chopped all my trees down. I mean, you would be pissed.
Took my 2-foot corn away, you know.
Yeah, everything's gone. Just like that. You know, because the Americans wanted your land. And apparently they must have had some really good land to grow that kind of corn and grow those kind of trees and everything. That means a lot of work. You're talking somebody put a lot of time and effort into it, you know, to grow all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, to have an orchard takes years.
Yeah. So this wasn't something that, you know, when they got there, like it says the troops were astonished because they had better houses than the soldiers. And you know, they got nice, beautiful houses all built in rows. It sounds like they went into the future with glass. They were amazed because they had glass windows. Who has glass windows back in the day?
Right.
You know, you got to be rich to have glass windows, and you got to be rich to have, you know, fireplaces and all that good stuff, and hewing logs and windows and, you know, things, and you got to be smart to have your house. You're talking a city, a village, a town, houses in rows. Oh my God, that doesn't even sound right, does it?
Nope.
But like I said, those Indians that were, you know, they were wiped out. Maybe there was more of this than just this. Maybe a lot of places were like this, and they just wiped them out, and they said, we ain't gonna write about it. We ain't gonna talk about it. Just burn their stuff.
Well, you know, the Cherokee had their own alphabet. They had their own constitution. You know, they lived in houses. You know, so it's like, and that was down here in Georgia. You know, I mean, other places too, but you know, there's up north of Macon up in there is a lot of, you know, a lot of Cherokee land there, and you know, that, I mean, they had, you know, 2-story houses, and they live, you know, and it's like, wait a minute, you know, so I built a 2-story house, and it's not easy.
Yeah.
That second story is really tough. And back in the day, to have, you know, to be able to build a 2-story house, they had to climb up, they had to build ladders. I mean, you know, a 1-story house is a whole lot easier, but you know, so all the building materials, how did they make their shingles? Where did they learn how to make shingles, for example, for their roof? I mean, just stuff most folks won't, you know, understand, but I took some pioneering classes back in the early 70s and learned how to make shake shingles. And, you know, but so who taught them? Where'd they get their tools to make those kinds of things? How did they develop it? I mean, they were a whole lot smarter and a whole lot more developed than anybody wants to give them credit.
Yeah. We just take them as savages, dancing around a fire, living in some little bark hut made of twigs and branches, but not so much. That, like I said. And then they said, the one thing they said was, after they burnt the houses, the only thing survived was the stories that the troops told after the houses were burnt. Nobody drew any pictures. Nobody, you know, documented anything. Here's another good one for you, that in one of the raids, on their way back, they raided one of the Indian towns, and it had so much valuable stuff that they gathered all this stuff up, and they brought it back to New York, and they sold it and got $30,000 for all the loot they brought back. Now, back in the day when things are really cheap, $30,000 is like bringing back $1 million worth of plundered goods.
Yeah.
Out of an Indian village, nonetheless. Now,
and $30,000, they had to pile it on wagons. People must have been carrying stuff. I mean, it just wasn't a couple of items.
Yeah, they said I'll get into that next week a little more, but this is going to be a two-parter because it was so long. So next week we're going to pick up where we left off tonight, because it gets really more interesting. We're just touching the surface, I mean, of this whole shebang. It is, they're just starting their march, and they're starting to get to these towns, and they're starting to burn and loot, and the Indians are just moving out. That Brant, he was Joseph Brant. He was a brilliant commander, and the Indians, rallied behind him. So he had really good skills. It's just that the Indians were so outmatched by the big artillery, the enormous amount of men, supplies, and things like that came along with this ginormous military group that came in to and extinguished the Indians' way of life. Put it that way.
Yeah, and if there were 4,000 men ish, and everyone had a gun,
yep.
Then if 100 of them lined up at once and shot at you, that'd be a wall of lead.
It was.
So, and the Indians weren't stupid. They might have tried to stand up against them, but once the lead started flying,
yeah,
and all they had was maybe a couple of guns and some bow and arrows and their hatchets for, up close combat.
Well, and that's
turn and run too.
Indians were more about the close combat. They had the black powder guns, they had hatchets and spears and things like that, but they didn't have that cannon. They didn't have that howitzer cannon to fire those mortar rounds that went a lot farther than you could shoot a gun. And when that thing come down, it could kill 2 or 3 guys. It'd blow more. Knock you off your horse. Something. Blow the tree out that you're hiding behind. It's not a good thing.
Tear off the leg. I mean, the same type of mortar type events are used in war today. So yes. you think about these Marines and folks who come back, missing limbs. So imagine, you're out there, and if it doesn't kill you, but you're missing an arm.
Yeah, exactly. And back in the day, if you get shot like that and blows off your arm or leg, more than likely you're going to bleed out and die. There's not much you're going to, if they don't get to you right away, you're going to die. Right?
Yeah, unless you can cauterize the wound real quick.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If they don't get to you right away, you're going to die. I mean, it's anyway,
it's a death warrant.
It is. It really is. So you got a story for us tonight, and we got some good ones.
Well, I hope so.
Always a good
one. This is a really short story, so we're probably going to go with 2 stories tonight, at least. And the second story is Silver Fox and Coyote. Right. So let me get straightened back out here. But our first story for tonight, and we are continuing on with our are stories from the Akomawi and Atsugiwi tales and myths by Roland B. Dixon. And I can't remember the year. Oh, it's 1909. And so these stories are over 100 years old, written down, but they were retold to these people who wrote them down. So we've been going along in order, and so this next story is called Blue Jay and Lizard and the Grizzly Bears. Then it's an Akomawi story. Some grizzly bears lived in a sweat house near where Blue Jay and Lizard lived. These latter had all kinds of food stored in bags of tulle. Grizzly bears had only acorns and used to have to go to the other house to get salmon and meat. A grizzly bear went over at sundown and sat down, saying, "I was sent over for scraps." Then Blue Jay would say, "All right, get out some salmon." And Lizard would give Grizzly Bear a large pile of it. When he got back home, the others would say, "They always give us a lot." In the morning, another grizzly went and came back with a huge basket of pine nuts. And in the evening, then another would go to get a lot of sunflower seeds. In this way, Blue Jay and Lizard gave away all the food they had and began to get hungry. Lizard, however, had been afraid that this would happen, so he had hidden 10 salmon under his pillow while Blue Jay had gone after wood one day. When all the rest of the food was gone, Lizard produced this reserve supply, and the two lived on this for a time. The grizzly bears had saved much of the food they had begged and feasted while the others were starving. The grizzly bears hoped the others would die. Blue Jay soon got very weak, but Lizard was able to get about. One day, Lizard covered up the coals with ashes in their house, closed the smoke hole, and taking his knife, crept over to the house where grizzly bears were, all asleep. Lizard looked in and saw all the food that they had there in storage. Then he went into the house, picked out the largest grizzly bear, crawled into his anus, and cut out his heart. He brought the heart out and then skinned the body of the bear. The others, meanwhile, sleeping on, Lizard baked the liver quickly in the ashes and ate it. Then, leaning a pole up against the door, he walked on this so that the grizzly bears could not see his tracks. He took all the grizzly bear meat home with him and one basket of acorns. He found Blue Jay almost dead, but he cooked some meat and gave him some, and after getting a little stronger, he was able to eat a great deal, and the two ate nearly all night. In the morning, the grizzly bears woke up and missed one of their number, but thought he had merely gone out of the house for a time. So they were not worried, but built a fire and sweated. Lizard and Blue Jay kept quiet in their house and did not move out. Every night, Lizard did the same thing, killing one of the bears until he had killed 4 of them, 2 on each side of the door as they slept. The grizzly bears did not suspect what the trouble was, for they thought both Lizard and Blue Jay were dead. Thus, Lizard and Blue Jay lived through the winter. The end. Crawled up his anus. Ooh, wee.
Yeah, that's a crazy one.
But if you're a lizard, I guess you can do that. So we've got two more stories coming up. We're in stock tonight, ain't we?
Yeah. Okay. Another story coming right up.
All right. So this is story number 8 in that book. Again, we're still in the Akumawi and Atsugiri Tales and Myths by R. Dixon, 1909. Silver Fox and Coyote, Akumawi. Silver Fox and Coyote lived together. Silver Fox gathered some serviceberry sticks and whittled them down nicely, working all night. The shavings were to be made into common people, the finished sticks into the best kind of people. About sunset the next day, he was ready to make them alive. He turned them into people. And Silver Fox sent them away, some in one direction and some in another. Then he and Coyote had a big feast. Coyote wanted to imitate the deed, and so copied everything he had seen Silver Fox do. Just before, the sticks and the shavings became people just about sunset. As soon as this happened, Coyote ran after some of the women and after a chase caught them. But as soon as he touched them, they turned back into sticks and shavings. The end of that one. Our next story in line is called The Mole and the Sun. Once the sun fell down from the sky just before sunrise. Mole caught it and held it up until people got there and helped him to shove it back. The sun had meant to roll along on the ground instead of in the sky. It was from holding up the sun that Mole's hands are bent so far back. Now, this next short story is also in the same vein, and it's called Coyote and the Cloud. Coyote and Cloud ran a race. Cloud bet storm and Coyote clear weather. They started far away to the south, and for a while, Coyote was in the lead. Then Cloud made fruits of all kinds to grow in front of Coyote, and he, looking back and seeing Cloud far behind, stopped to eat. And this way, Cloud caught up and won. This is why we have storms in the wintertime. Next little short story we have here is the creation myth, Atsugiwi. Now, this is a different tribe, so this is a slightly different story. In the beginning, there was nothing but water. Coyote and Silver Fox lived above in the sky, where there was a world equal as one. Silver Fox was anxious to make things, but Coyote was opposed to the plan. Finally, Silver Fox got tired of Coyote's opposition and sent him off one day to get wood. While he was gone, Silver Fox took an arrow flaker and made a hole through the upper world and looked down on the sea below. When Coyote came back, Silver Fox did not tell him about the hole he had made. The next day, he sent Coyote off again for wood. and in his absence, Silver Fox thrust down the arrow flaker and found that it reached to the water and down to the bottom even. So he descended, and as he came near the surface of the water, he made a small round island on which he stayed. When Coyote returned, he could not find Silver Fox, and after hunting for a long time, began to feel remorse. Finally, he found the hole and peeped through, seeing Silver Fox far below on the island. He called down that he was sorry he had acted as he had and asked how to get down. Receiving no supply, he said that Silver Fox ought not to treat him this way. And after a while, the latter put up the arrow flaker and Coyote came down. The island was very small and there was not room enough for Coyote to stretch out. For some time they slept, and when they woke, were very hungry, as there was no food to be had. For 5 days, things continued thus. Silver Fox finally giving Coyote some sunflower seeds. This pleased him so much, and he asked where they came from, but received no answer. After 5 days, Silver Fox made the island a little larger so that Coyote could have room to stretch out. At last he could be comfortable and went fast asleep. At once Silver Fox got up, dressed himself up finely, and smoked a while, and then made a big sweat house. When it was all done, he woke Coyote, and the latter was so much surprised to find the house there. Silver Fox then told Coyote to sweep out the house, spread grass down on the floor, and go to sleep again. He did so. Then Silver Fox dressed up again, putting on a finely beaded shirt and leggings, and sang and smoked some more. Then, going outside, he pushed with his foot and stretched the earth out in all directions, first to the east, then to the north, then to the west, and last to the south. For 5 nights, he repeated this performance until the world became as large as it is today. Each day, Silver Fox told Coyote to run around the edge and see how large it was getting. At first, he was able to do this very quickly, but after the last time, he grew old and gray before he got back. Then Silver Fox made trees and springs and fixed the world up nicely. He also made all kinds of animals merely by thanking them. These animals, however, were like people. When the world was all made, Coyote asked what they were going to have for food, but Silver Fox did not reply. Coyote then said that he thought there ought to be 10 moons of winter in the year, to which Silver Fox replied that there would not be enough food for so long a winter. Coyote declared it would be better not to have much food, that people could make soup out of dirt. To this he received no answer. Silver Fox then said that it was not right that there should be 10 moons, that 2 were enough, and that people could then eat sunflower seeds, roots, and berries. Coyote repeated that he had said before, and they argued about it for a long time. Finally, Silver Fox said, "You talk too much. I'm going to make 4 moons for the whole year. I won't talk about it anymore. There are going to be 2 moons of winter, and 1 of spring, and 1 of autumn. That's enough. Silver Fox said, when people get married, they will have children by taking a dentulum shell and putting it in between them, or a disc bead. One wind will make a boy, the other a girl. Coyote replied, that's not the right way. It will be better for people to get married. They will not be satisfied any other way. People must live as man and wife. They ought not to do as you said. Silver Fox did not want to argue the matter, and finally, after repeating what he said before, he yielded to Coyote and said, let it be as you say. Silver Fox then went out to get some pine nuts. He climbed a tree and shook the branches, and the nuts fell down already shelled and ready to eat. He filled a basket with them and brought them in. Coyote had gone to get wood, and when he got back, Silver Fox divided the pine nuts and gave him half. Silver Fox ate only part of his and put the rest away. But Coyote ate nearly all night, going out and defecating, and then returning and eating some more until he had finished them. Next morning, Silver Fox went out and looked for pines having large witch brooms on them. When he found one, he would set fire to it and then walk away looking constantly on the ground, and a grouse would straightway fall out of the tree. Then he placed them in a basket and brought them back to the house. Coyote wanted to begin eating at once and helped him in with his load. As before, Coyote ate all his share up, whereas Silver Fox kept most of his. Next day, Coyote asked Silver Fox how he got his pine nuts. He told him to go to a tree, scrape the brush away, climb up, and then shake the boughs with his foot. Coyote thought he could do this, so he went out to try. He was successful, but on coming down, ate up all the nuts. Then he went to another tree and attempted to repeat the process, but this time no nuts fell. And Coyote himself lost his footing and was badly hurt by the fall. He came back to the house with his neck bent to one side and in great pain. Silver Fox knew all that had happened going on, but said nothing. After a while, Coyote told him what had happened. The next day, Coyote asked how the grouse had been secured, and Silver Fox told him to set fire to the tree and then sit with his back to the trunk and not look up. So Coyote went off to get grouse. He was successful in his attempt, but opened his eyes and looked up and saw the grouse falling. When he had picked them all up, he cooked and ate them on the spot, and then went to another tree to repeat the process. This time, however, it was burning branches that fell, and they hit him and burned him badly. So he ran away back to the house, crying. Silver Fox gave him some of his food, however. In the morning, Silver Fox went out, and going to a cedar tree, pulled off the boughs, which became a sort of canvas. He brought back a great load of these, and when he got back, as before, Coyote ate all of his share at once. Then he asked how to get them, and was told to make a long hook and pull the limbs off, but to keep his eyes shut all the time. As in the other cases, Coyote was very successful the first time and ate all the roots up. When he tried to repeat the plan, however, only big limbs came down and hit him on the head. By and by, Silver Fox went rabbit hunting. He built a brush fence and drove the rabbits into it where they all piled up. Then he killed them with a club and carried them to the house. Just as before, Coyote ate up all his share at once. Silver Fox could not prevent Coyote from eating up all there was in the house, except by not letting him know when he was eating. He would put pine nuts in a milkweed stem and pretend to be making cord, whereas in reality he was eating the nuts. Coyote soon suspected and asked Silver Fox to let him help make string. He agreed, but gave the Coyote the stems without any nuts in them. The next night, Coyote pretended to sleep and so caught Silver Fox putting the nuts into the stems. He jumped up and seized Silver Fox, but the latter swallowed quickly, and when he opened his mouth, there was no nuts there. He told Coyote that before people ate nuts, they would put them in a basket, and Coyote believed him. Silver Fox then went out to get more milkweed, as he said, and while he was gone, Coyote took a large stone and struck the roof beams, trying to find where Silver Fox had hidden the nuts. Finally, he found the right one, and the nuts began to pour down. He called out, "Stop! That's enough! I am chief! That is enough!" But the nuts kept falling, and by, there was a huge pile there. Then Coyote said, "Let big baskets come." And they were there, and he gathered up the nuts and put them in the baskets, and then ate and ate all the nuts he could. Then he brought in some wood and was going to say that the nuts fell down when he threw in the wood, as he had hit the bean by accident. Just then Silver Fox came in with a load of milkweed and began to make string. Coyote told him his story and said that he had been scared when the nuts began to fall, that it was not right to put them in the roof beams, but in the baskets as he had now done. Silver Fox, however, did not reply until he said, "You eat on that side of the house, and I will eat on this." Then he went on making string, while Coyote, after eating all he could, went to sleep. When he finished making the string, Silver Fox got up softly and measured Coyote's nose. Then he sat down and began to make a net. He had to measure again pretty soon, and then Coyote woke up and asked what was the trouble. Silver Fox said that he was only blowing ashes off of Coyote's face, so he went to sleep again. Coyote woke up again later and asked Silver Fox what he was doing, and he said that he was making a net to catch rabbits in. So Coyote went to sleep once more. Finally, the net was complete, and then Silver Fox told Coyote to eat breakfast, to eat a big breakfast, and then they would go out and get rabbits. They started out, Silver Fox carrying a big club. Coyote asked why he took so large a one, but Silver Fox said that it was the right size. By and by, Silver Fox set up the net and showed Coyote where it was. And then Silver Fox said, "Now you run off. When you get a little distance away, shut your eyes and run as fast as you can." Coyote said that he would do so and started off, and then quickly Silver Fox took up the net and put it where Coyote would run into it. Pretty soon Coyote came in sight, driving the rabbit slowly. And when he got only a little way off, he shut his eyes and ran as fast as he could. He ran squarely into the net, and this drew up, and Silver Fox then rushed up and struck him with the club. Coyote cried out, "You're hitting me!" And Silver Fox said, "Yes, don't mind that." And he kept on hitting him until he had killed him. Then he went back to the house and started off over the world, and wherever Coyote had urinated, Silver Fox scraped up the ground and smoothed it over nicely. He went everywhere thus, and thought he had fixed every place. There was one, however, on a little island in a lake that he had overlooked. This lake lay far off to the northeast. Then Silver Fox came to the house and went to sleep. At dawn, he got up and went up and looked out of the house and listened. For a while, he heard nothing, and then he heard faintly Coyote howling far away. He then knew he had missed one place and felt very sad. He sat down and thought, but did not know what to do. Coyote was too smart for him, he thought. Finally, he heard the howling come closer. Then he thought of a plan. He made a lot of manzanita, wild cherries, plums, and etc. grow along the road that Coyote was following. Coyote was very angry and wanted to kill Silver Fox. He came to the manzanita, and Silver Fox thought he would delay him thus. But Coyote only took one berry and continued on his way. He came to the plums, and of these Coyote ate largely, as he thought he could fight better if he was not hungry. As he ate, he forgot about his anger. Then he started on once again. Silver Fox was afraid, however, and pretended to be very sick when Coyote got back. Coyote told him he had better eat some plums, that they were very good, and that it was useless to lie still all day. Finally, Silver Fox got up and ate some, and so Coyote forgot all about his revenge. Coyote said the next day that he was going out to pick fruit. He went and picked plums and cherries and manzanita and brought them back, saying that there was plenty of food. Silver Fox told him to go and get some wood, and then he went out and caught some rabbits, and they cooked and ate them and lived without quarreling anymore. The end. How about that one? That was a good pilot.
It was.
That was a good pilot story, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There was no head chopping, though.
No.
But he did kill him.
He did kill him at least once.
Well, you know, he went apparently wherever Coyote had urinated, you know, because he had went around and tried to clean up all the spots. But, you know, the one that was left was on the lake, so that's where Coyote sprang back up.
Yep.
So that's interesting. You know, it's like, what from his urination? So, but in the end, he taught him a lesson, you know?
He did. He did. So, how about that? Nice stories, yes. Anyway, Sky Boy says, no murder? Yeah, you missed the murdering part. He clubbed him to death. He clubbed Coyote to death.
Yeah, he tricked him, which is interesting because Coyote's the trickster, you know. So, but he tricked him into running into the net. So that's interesting.
Richard the Red is in the house. F Kitty. Good to see y'all. Mossy Man. Off the
Hi,
hook.
everybody.
Deborah Hugo. There you go. Hello, hello. Thank you, everybody, for joining me tonight. And David Null, as he tells the greatest stories in the world. Tell you that. Chloe's in the house. Good evening. Good evening. Anyway.
Yeah, and it's the duty of a shaman to relate the stories.
Yep.
You know, it's the duty. I mean, it's an obligation, you know, for a shaman, if they're really truly a shaman, to tell the old stories and to give insight to what the old was like, so we can try to, you know, uphold some of the old traditions. You know, you had a road runner. What? That was cool.
Yeah, yesterday I had a roadrunner and the biggest jackrabbit I ever seen in my backyard.
Holy mackerel.
Interesting. Cool. Anyway.
Well, I'm shuffling cards. Do we have time? What time is it? Yeah, we got. I'll make it quick. Story time was a little longer. But you know, I just couldn't get by with just three short ones. And then when I got to the next one, I didn't realize it was as long as it was. But anyway, we done all right. So for those of you out there, I'm shuffling cards. And if you need a message, if you need some insight, I'm fixing to go through them. So think about what kind of message you want, and we'll see what the cards show.
Okay. I haven't seen a roadrunner either, guys. Don't feel bad. Not a real one, anyway. Sure, it'd be kind of cool. I'll have to look it up. I don't think Roadrunner's in your deck. I don't think we've ever pulled Roadrunner.
No.
Not in there.
The closest we got to Roadrunner is a grouse.
Yeah. And Kitty says they can be from knee high. Oh, that's a freaking big one. Knee high to hip high. Super lethal beaks. It's like an ostrich. I like them, just not in the yard. Aggressive beasties. My cat's a walking victim. Wow. Wow. Yeah, jackrabbits are big. I got a few around here, and they're as big as dogs. Roadrunners will kill a rattlesnake. Wow. Nito Bandito. Didn't know that. So what do we got tonight?
We got a mixed batch.
Oh boy.
Boy, what a mixed batch. Yeah. That's what I'm looking at going, what do I make out of this? There was a question mark because it's like I got a hit as soon as I touched the cards, and sometimes you got to shuffle a little bit to get there, you know, and this one was like boom. So it's like the 10th card down kind of thing, and it was possum. Straight up. And so I've got these cards laid out, and the next card that was like 2 or 3 cards away from it is lizard upside down. So then they kept yanking at me, and the next card up is crow, which is straight up. And then 2 more cards, and the next one is elk upside down and coyote to finish up. upside down. So let me get through these real quick here. I was surprised. Possum? What is that one? 23. I went right to literally opened the book on the page. That's always weird. So it must mean that the card was necessary. So possum is diversion. Oh, possum, roll over. Are you really dead? Or just playing possum? Was it something that I said? Now I can tell you about possum because I got one around the house here. And Duggar will literally go freaking nuts. And I heard him out back, and he had this possum all rolled up and shaking him and growling and everything. And finally, when he was done shaking and growling on the possum just laid there. Then Duggar was like, okay, look at me. I looked down and I said, good job. Then he was like, okay, let me back in the house. So a few minutes later, I went back out there and looked. Possum was gone. So that it's true what they say. And that's not, this happened just like maybe a week ago. So, and it's happened several times with Duggar. So possums really do put out a scent that they think that they're dead, and they will not move a muscle. It's amazing. They're dead. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, and off they're gone. So a possum's greatest protection is to play dead. So possum medicine uses a great deal of strategy. If all else fails, possum plays dead. It has the ability to fight with its claws and teeth, but it rarely uses this form of protection. If possum is turned up in your cards, you are being asked to use strategy in some present situation. Strategy. Rely upon your instincts for the best way out of a tight corner. If you have to pretend to be apathetic or unafraid, do it. Oftentimes, if you refuse to struggle or to show that hurtful words bother you, your taunter will see no further fun in the game. And it's true. Possum may be relying on you, relaying to you that you are to expect the unexpected and to be clever in achieving your victory. So you have to be clever, and strategy and cleverness. Okay. So our next card up is number 36, Lizard. I went right to the page again. Wow, that is double weird. Lizard is dreaming. Remember in the dream time, we've talked about Lizard, where Snake comes under the rock with him, and Snakes was like, how you going to let me in? He goes, yeah. And he goes, well, I thought you were sleeping. And then Lizard says, no, I was dreaming. And so Snake wanted to know the difference. So Lizard explained, dreaming is going into the future. I go where the future lives. That is why I know you won't eat me today, he said. So lizard medicine is the shadow side of reality, where your dreams are reviewed before you decide to manifest them physically. So now, being upside in the contrary position, if lizard is turned upside down, you may be having a nightmare. Life today is like a nightmare. This is a sign of inner conflict. Look to the nightmare for a clue to the nature of this conflict. So if something inside is really bothering you, you need to just let your mind go and figure out what that is. Breathe through those feelings and let the sensations flow out of your body if it's truly a nightmare. See the truth in what your nightmare is suggesting. It could be the simple message that you are confronting your fears and therefore do not need to experience nightmarish events. Another message of lizard reversed is that you may need more sleep or dream time. Imagination is the door to all new ideas and creations. So first card up is Possum, and we're going to use strategy to learn how to find new ideas and creations. So the next card up is number 24, which is interesting. It's the next page over from Possum. Crow is law. Dead Crow is the left-handed guardian. Crow's fascination with her own shadow until she kept looked at it, scratching at it, pecking at it until her shadow woke up and became alive. Then Crow's shadow ate her. Crow is Dead Crow now. So Dead Crow is the left-handed guardian. If you look deeply into Crow's eyes, you have found the gateway to the supernatural. Now, Lizard's telling you that you need more dream time. And Possum is telling you, to use more strategy. So maybe you need to think about your dreams. So since Crow is the keeper of sacred law, Crow can bend the laws of the physical universe and shapeshift. This ability is rare and unique. All sacred texts are under the protection of Crow. Creator's Book of Laws, or the Book of Seals, is bound in crow feathers. Crow feathers tell of the spirit made flesh. Crow is also the protector of the Ogala, or the ancient records. Human law is not the same as sacred law. More so than any other medicine, Crow sees that, the physical world and even the spiritual world, as humanity interprets them, that Crow sees them as an illusion. There are billions of worlds. There are an infinitude of creatures. Great Spirit is within all things. If an individual obeys Crow's perfect laws as given by the Creator, then at death he or she dies a good medicine death, going on to the next incarnation with a clear memory of their past. Interesting. So how the law of Crow, imagination, and the sacred texts. So there's the possum. So the next card up is number 3, elk. So they're kind of leading towards, take a stop and listen. Lizard always into the imagination kind of thing, and elk is stamina. So the whole thing about elk is, we found out that the way that he stayed away from mountain lion and panther was that he could keep running. And that the panther and the mountain lion just gave up after a short distance. So the elk is, its strength is in its stamina. If elk has appeared in the reverse position, you may be stretching the rubber band to the breaking point. Be careful of undue stress levels, or you might just create an illness to force you to take a break. So possum is deception, and that you got to use strategy. Lizard is telling you that you may need more dream time. Crow is saying staying close to the sacred law. And elk is saying that maybe you are stretching things too thin. And then last of all is number 13, which is coyote. Oops. I didn't just go to that page. I had to look for it. But as I said earlier, coyote is the trickster. And coyote has many magical powers, but they do not always work in his favor. His own trickery fools him. He falls into his own trap, just like the coyote and the roadrunner in the cartoons. And yet somehow he manages to survive every time. Now that's true. You know, no matter what falls on him, he always makes it. He may be banged up and bruised, but he soon goes on his way to even greater nonsense and errors, forgetting to learn from his mistakes. He may have lost the battle, but he is never beaten. Think about that. So you may lose and you may be bruised, and you may say, well, I lost the battle, but if you get back up, you're not beaten. So think about that. But now coyote was upside down. So if coyote appears in the reverse position, you can be assured that he is going to be contrary and a pain in the butt. Look around yourself and watch which direction he may be coming from. If coyote is approaching you from the outside, be aware of master of illusion. So in other words, you may think there's a problem when there ain't. And then you may think that there's a and then you may think there is a problem and there ain't. And then you say, well, there ain't a problem and there is. Okay. So coyote may put you in his spell and take you to a briar patch to pick berries. It will be a painful lesson for you if you follow him. Be careful. Coyote reverse can appear in your life as a supposed knowing-all teacher, a scam artist, a get-rich-quick business planner, or even a televangelist. Coyote is not the recommended business partner or lover. Contrary, coyote may signal a time when everything you touch backfires. All your jokes may be exploding in your face. In this reversed position, coyote also signals a time to be aware of your intentions of others and to look for the boomerang you threw. Someone else's trick may be on you, or they could be some deception in the wind. So possum, lizard, the crow, and elk. And watch out for deception and look in what direction. So that's an interesting set of cards.
It sure is.
That's an interesting set of cards. And I did it in 15 minutes.
Pretty darn good.
That's pretty good.
Yep. Don't let them get in your chicken coop, though. They'll eat them all.
Yeah, so it's interesting that there's stamina in there, but it's upside down. So, and the lizard is in the dream time, upside down. So it seems that there are folks who may need some more rest. You know, that seems to be and possum even, you know, in the deception range, using strategy. So it might be strategical impairment for you to plan some more, you know, downtime, dream time. And in that, even crow shows up, you know. So and coyote at the end is like, be aware of deception. So and we should always be aware of that. So, but sometimes we need to go to the briar patch to pick them berries and get a few nubbies in your fingers, because every time I go pick blackberries, you're going to get stuck. And but you can't get the berries unless you do. So
Yep.
you learn a lesson, you get some fruit, but sometimes you got to pick out a thorn. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but
right.
Interesting card set. Let me tell you, that's interesting. They're not negative though. That even though 3 of the 5 cards were down, it's not a negative message. So I think we all should be thankful and grateful for that. You know what I mean? It's not a negative message. If we all need more sleep and rest, and we need to put more strategy in our lives to avoid deception, that's not a bad message.
Not a bad one. I like it.
It may be, I'm sitting here and I'm listening, and it's more of a warning that if you don't get enough rest, you may be subject to deception. And so that, because when you're tired, you can make some dumb mistakes and you can be like Coyote. So make sure, spend some time in the dream time. And also, if things right now, people want to plan for the future. I'm glad I'm an old man and don't have a lot of future to plan for. God, that's sad, ain't it? But I mean, I'm not looking at the death, but that, it's like when I was younger, I'm looking to build a house, and I'm looking at that. I want to get married and have kids. I'm all past that now, right? But so what my future I look forward to is a lot different than what other people do. And in this day and age, I can't imagine. I went through the Reagan days and the Carter days and the this days and the that days, and I'm still here after all that, along with a lot of other people. But, we got to keep an eye on the deception thing. There's stuff on the internet. Oh, just call this number and we'll send you a check. And, oh, just sign up for this and we'll get. Nothing is for free, my friends. Nothing. And I think that's where the deception is. I said this in my podcast yesterday, either number 1 or 2, I can't remember. But in this day and age, and I want to warn folks, they're going to take down the banks. They want to change this over to digital so freaking bad. So when I went to town yesterday to pick up my meds, I went by the bank and took another $100 out in cash.
Yeah.
And it's got my bank account really low, lower than it's been in a couple of years. But I'd rather have the money in my hand than can't get it out of the bank. So I'm like, oh, but my balance is going to be so. Yeah, but I get paid next week if the check comes in, And so, but the thing is that I'm not broke. It's just not in the bank. So people get this thing that, I've only got so much money in the bank, but if you got $500 in your mattress, you ain't poor. And I'd rather have, I'm just using the number, but if you got $500 in your mattress, you shouldn't be worried, Yeah.
No, I agree.
If the banks go down.
Well, yeah, you should keep some sort of cash, even if you just think of it this way. Just put $1 or $2 a week away, and pretty soon you'll have that $100 stashed away somewhere.
Every month when I get my checks, I always take a certain amount in cash, and I keep it here at the house in case of emergencies. But in a couple of next month, I got to pay $300 for insurance, car insurance. So some of that money is going to go for that. And I also got to pay tax at the end of the year. So, but by taking a certain amount every single month and sticking to it and, and keeping it, now I got enough. I don't have to worry about it.
I know. I save my money too. I save and I save and I save. And then I go buy crazy things. Like I just bought a big ass tractor, big tractor, like farmer tractor now.
Yeah, I want one.
Huh?
I want one. I got to keep saving.
Yeah. I got a I picked up a 4010 John Deere, big tractor with a big loader and
Oh, wow.
yeah. So I'm a farming now. I got a tractor to pull anything. It's got big tires on, bigger than me.
I wish we was neighbors.
Came with a cultivator thing on the back. So look out, world. I'm ready to go bale some hay.
Wowzers.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's all good. Yeah. You gotta farm. You gotta have farm stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's my adventures.
Well, I hope the message tonight with the cards kind of means something to folks. Don't overstretch yourself. That's one of the biggies, was the stamina from elk. So if you feel like you're stretching yourself too thin, maybe you are, then you might need to just, use some strategy, use strategy to figure out maybe you don't know how to rest. Well, maybe you need to sit down and figure that out. That's part of the strategy. Strategy, tragedy, strategy. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I did. But anyway, you got a show tonight?
Probably, because I'm just up and wound up. So
I know you've been
I'll go get some coffee, and me and Doug will go outside for a few minutes, and I'll come back home.
Been having some good controversial shows. I've really enjoyed listening to them, even though I was there, I just couldn't text too much. But yeah, I was listening. I was like, oh man, you were really into it about that the assassination attempt thing and what was going on with all that. Holy cow, you were wound up, man.
Well, I've listened and seen so much about some other stuff, and I'm like, but there's some more interesting things coming out. But one of the things I have bounced up upon today is that the leakage of the video from the upstairs window of the building right behind where the shooter was, and that the guys were up there looking out the window and they had heard some stuff and went downstairs to look for the shooter. While they were downstairs, he climbed up on the building.
Yeah, but the thing is even so, people seen him on the building. They're pointing him out. They're like, he's right there. He's right there.
I know, but the guys who were watching the roof went downstairs to look for him. In the meantime, he climbed up. Interesting point, but somebody should have stayed in that position regardless. Regardless.
The thing is, it's like, we know that. I mean, I think everybody realizes when there's an event like that, and you got a high-profile figure, you have to have tight security. You just don't flim-flam it and say, yeah, I hired a bunch of yahoos and they're all hanging around, and you guys just go watch those buildings over there.
And that's what happened, because the Secret Service did not have enough staff, and so they hired some of the local Pennsylvania group, and those were the folks that were assigned to watch that roof. It was too hot for them, so they went inside. And during that time, then there were they had to use a text to tell the Secret Service that there was a problem. They had to send a text.
Yeah, see, this is where, like I said, this is where you got to wonder who is running this kid, to do this, because I don't think just think of it this way. A 20-year-old kid, does he really think like that? You know what I mean? The mentality of a 20-year-old kid thinking, yeah, I'm just going to go get this stuff and get me a ladder and a pea shooter, and I'm going to go down there and we're going to take care of business. Really?
Where'd he get the van? Where'd he get the bomb stuff? Where'd he get the transmitter? How did he learn how to do a transmitter to set off a bomb? There's a bunch of other stuff that needs to come out. But one of the things that struck me today when I seen this video of them, look, this is where they were sitting and they could see the top of the building. And then they heard the commotion downstairs and went down to help. Now, these people were hired. They were not part of the Secret Service, nor were they part of the normal police department or sheriff's department. They're extras. What if one of them guys did not like Trump?
Yeah, well, and that's the whole thing.
And so he's like, whoa, there's a shooter on the roof. Better leave my position and let him get shot. I mean, so by negligence, yeah. You know, they kind of sort of get the job done. So it looks at this point that it, but was the negligence planned?
That's what I mean. Somebody knew that they would have been short-staffed. They knew this could happen. Somebody told the kid which roof to go sit on, you know, because when he gets there, you think he looked around and said, yeah, they're not going to be on that roof. I'm sure he went straight to that roof. He didn't go.
Here's the thing. The guys who were supposed to be on the roof were inside. Yeah, so when he looked around, sent the drone over, he didn't see no snipers. So then he said, perfect spot.
He had a drone too?
Yeah, they say he had now I want to know where they found out that he had a drone before the event. Because they've been talking about that he'd been flying a drone over. So what did the drone get to his phone? Because some drones you use your phone for. But
that's another thing. I don't think they let you fly drones during events like that in the first place.
They weren't supposed to. What about the bicycle and the backpack that are both, you know, illegal to have in an area? But the way they had the perimeter shown. But the bottom line is Secret Service has got $3.4 billion a year as their budget. 3.4, not million, billions. Now, I know them folks do a hard job and I wouldn't, but you know, you can't train folks better than that. Mm-hmm. I mean, seriously. But because of President Biden and et cetera, a lot of folks just don't want to work for him. Don't want to be there, you know. And there are guys I've heard, some of the snipers and folks who have done, you know, they were like, I'll go do it for free.
Yeah. Well, like
ex-military, I'll go do it for free, you know.
They let you fly a drone over that in the first place because, you know, he didn't even have to shoot. He just flies drone over. Nobody's going to stop you. You know, I mean, see, they don't let you. It's like they don't let you fly a drone over an airport. They don't even, they get jammers. You'd think they'd have jammers for that and stuff like that. I mean, something is fishy. The
biggest thing that's fishy is negligence. They didn't. Oh, well, it's just a Trump rally. And there's just going to be a few people there. Oh, by the way, the first lady's going to be over here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And so, we got to make sure she's got enough. So they did pull some assets, as they call them, over to her event, which was inside a casino with really tight security to begin with. And they steal assets to go to her event because she's the first lady. And they just, we'll give you a couple over there. But one of the interesting, I watched that thing entirely yesterday where they grilled that lady and then she resigns today, which she should have resigned yesterday. But the fact that she was like, well, you know, we got to split up the assets. Well, we know that they had dogs. No, they didn't. Well, the assets were available. Well, what does that mean? Well, are they in Washington? Well, we got some dogs, you know, but we got to fly them in from Colombia, you know.
I think Peachy Queen says it all. Distractions, all of these guys, giving your power to them. Well, you know, and she's right. We are mulling over it way too much. But we'll talk. You can talk about it on your show. We got to get going because I gotta go to work in the morning.
Yeah, you
But
got to go to work. But basically, my friends, I think most of it was honestly due to severe amount of negligence. But I think it was planned negligence.
that's true. That is true. So, okay, everybody, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you, David, for being here.
We love you.
And we go out and do something nice. You know, all this, like Peachy Queen says, it's all bullshit stuff. Go out and do something nice that isn't bullshit. Do something nice for your neighbor where it really counts. Who cares about the president or all that other stuff? Think local. If we all made our local areas great again, we'd be doing even better. Because you know
That's
what?
right.
We want to be that frequency. We want to receive everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.